In racing, problems always come up, and they come up more often when we don't have a plan. My next guest, Thomas Gaydos, is the man with the plan. Let's throw the green flag on this episode. Well, as I mentioned, we have Thomas in the Atomic Autosports studio to share his motorsports journey. And Thomas, I want to say thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, when there's a story about how I met a guest, I like to share it. So for the listeners, I saw Thomas, heard about Thomas, had been around Thomas at a bunch of SCCA events, but we never really met until this last season. And we had a karting event at High Voltage Karting. I think that's probably the first time I talked to you and your dad. And then to wrap up the club racing season, you and I, we just happened to have our trailers parked next to one another. And we started talking more and more. You were very helpful. I'm going to talk about that as well. But that's how we met, and I'm glad we did because you got a good story to share.
Yeah, it's a different story than most young drivers, but it's definitely a different approach to enter motorsports.
Yeah, so let's talk about how you got started. So should be no surprise. My favorite movie is Cars. And every holiday will get something Cars related. My screensaver is Lightning McQueen. My wife's screensaver on her phone is Sally. Sure, that's cute, but I really do love that movie, and that's what got you started and interested in racing. What was it about Lightning McQueen and the Cars movie that said, man, this looks cool?
It's one of those where I grew up in that era of young drivers where we had all the good racing movies, and Cars came out just before I was born, so it was one of those where it kind of just fell into my lap. And I watched the movie so many times that I actually burned one CD disc up on it. But it's a great racing movie. It's a great story, and it's one of the best. Like you said, you can watch it over and over again and never be upset about it.
Yeah, exactly. So your first real interest, though, you're doing road racing now, but it was drag racing. What kind of sparked the interest in drag racing initially?
So growing up, my family was really into drag racing. So we used to go out to Norwalk, Summit Motorsports Park, and we'd go watch NHRA drag races, mainly the Summer Nationals and Night Under Fire. So I grew up with Top Fuel Funny Cars, or not Top Fuel Funny Cars, Top Fuel Dragsters, Nitromethane Funny Cars, Pro Stocks, and we just loved it. It was before we really had any idea of what road racing was, and that's just whenever one of those events came up, we'd go, and it got to a point where I became so interested in it that we were about 15 minutes away from getting me into a junior dragster.
What stopped that?
Well, at the time, I was doing a lot of music, and we were doing a lot of other things. We were playing golf. I think I was playing Little League soccer, all that, and it got to the point where it's like, one more thing I don't think we need right now.
Wow. Were you disappointed when the decision was made?
At the time, I think I probably was. Now, it's like I do all the road racing and stuff, so I'm kind of glad I missed that opportunity. But at the same time, I think it would be fun to drive a Pro Stock or a Top Fuel Dragster or something like that.
Have you ever gone down the drag strip in a car?
I have not. I'd love to. I don't really have a great car to go down the drag strip, but just like road racing, you can take your street car out and drive down the strip. So
I never have been down a drag strip either. Been to plenty of, grudge match nights and bracket racing, but never took the green light down the drag strip. So maybe that'll be our next SCCA outing. We'll all crash a Wednesday night out at Coonley or something.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. So your uncle did some vintage racing. So that's
Correct.
after the decision was made not to go drag racing, you kind of got drawn into vintage racing. What kind of car did your uncle race? What kind of team did he run with?
So he actually never raced. He was a chief mechanic for a vintage race team out of Arizona. And I kind of grew up with that about the same time as we were doing all the drag racing stuff. So I grew up around, like I said, all the dragsters, but then I also grew up with, 60s Trans Am cars, Porsche GT cars. I got to be around real GT40s and Cobras. So I grew up with a lot of really cool cars in my life. And whenever they came out east, from Arizona, tracks like Road America, Mid Ohio, Watkins Glen. So I got to go to all those and see, the old school cars driving on those tracks that have been around for so long. And it's just been an awesome experience.
When you would hang out with them or go see them at the track, were you able to hop in a car and at least sit in it, get a feel for it? Were you able to be in the pits?
Yeah, I got to be everywhere from sitting in the car, all the way up to standing on the podium at Watkins Glen. Little 4 or 5-year-old Thomas standing on the podium with grandma, which was always really cool. But actually, what got me into road racing was because of one of those events. It was July of 2020, actually. We went up to Road America, and they had their team had the 1966 Sebring 24-hour winning car, which was a GT40, and I got to sit in it. And that's really what sparked road racing for me.
Wow. Have you seen Ford versus Ferrari? I'm sure you have.
A number of times. It's one of my favorites.
Oh my gosh. So that's so cool that you had that opportunity up there. And then that's what got the itch going, lit the fire, so to speak. So your dad started road racing, and then you started, I don't want to say tagging along, but you started doing some track days with that. What do you think made him want to get into road racing?
So before we started, we kind of talked about how we wanted to approach this, because we had no racing experience up until then. So we decided, being that I was only 14, 15 years old at the time, it's probably going to be much easier for my dad to go through it at his age and learn the process and all that. Looking back on it now, I probably would have been able to take it at 14, 15 years old. And there's a lot of drivers younger than me that are going through it with no problem. But when you've never experienced it, you just have, we didn't know what we didn't know. Mm-hmm. And we figured, have dad do it first, and then we'll send me the year after.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool for both of you. I mean, here he is like, I'm doing this for my kid. I might as well learn it. And he's having a blast and doing really well. And then you get to see and learn everything about him. Were you kind of, that first year, was there some disappointment? Was there some angst? Like, I want to get in there. I want to do this. Or were you patiently waiting?
It's a little bit of both. I was able to do probably 4 or 5 track days that first year. So I was doing a lot of on track. And at that age, I've only really done sim racing up until that point when it comes in terms of cars. I didn't know anything, so it was good for me to get on track. I mean, my first track day, I think on lap 3 or 4, I thought turn 1 at Nelson was flat. Well, I learned pretty quickly that's not the case. Thankfully kept out of the tires.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a wake up moment, right? What kind of car were you driving?
I was driving my dad's Civic. I know the listeners can't see it, but it's this car behind me here.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, so it was a legit car. You're not just taking the Subaru out there.
Correct. It was a fully built prod car. So.
Oh man, that's so cool. So So how old were you when you were doing that track days?
I was 15 at the time.
15. All right. So the listeners, there might be some listeners that say, hey, wait a minute, he didn't have a driver's license. So how does that work? Someone that wants to go to a track day at that young age.
I can't remember entirely, but at the time, I think I had just gotten my whatever it is, your temporary license, or so you can ride with your parents or drive with your parents. But I had never driven a car before I went on track. So before we went out, my dad took me to a parking lot near my grandparents with the car just to make sure I wouldn't stall the car before we go out. But it's not a complex process from what I remember. It's been so long now, it seems like. But I know the one group, unfortunately, they're out of business now, Auto Interest. They were very welcoming to young drivers. I know Kreider Racing does track days. They're very welcoming to young drivers. A lot of those organizations are. And you just have to reach out with them, talk with them, and they'll figure it all out for you.
Right. So from your perspective, how was the SCCA licensing process? Easier than you thought? Was it pretty smooth for you? Walk us through that.
So, I guess for a little context, I went to the Washington, D.C. region's driver school at Summit Point, and I had a fantastic experience there. It was both easier and harder than I expected. The actual test taking portion of it wasn't bad. Knowing your flags, what does this mean? What does that mean? That wasn't hard for me. The actual on track tests and stuff like that they did there, passing drill, stuff like that. That's something I hadn't done before, because with track days it was all point bys and only on the straights. So from the on-track perspective, it was a little different, but actually taking the test and all that, it was a very smooth process, and you have a lot of other people to help you along the way while you're at those driver schools.
Yeah, I think so. The listener understands too. The reason you chose there is because they had a driver school. There's really not a whole lot available to us in the Ohio area. Is that right?
That's correct. It was kind of, for us, we were bouncing between Waterford Hills, where my dad took his school, and Summit Point. But I believe Nelson had a race early on in the season that was before the Waterford Hills school. And I wanted to get out driving as soon as possible. So we made the multi-hour trek down to Summit Point and did that school.
Okay. You mentioned Reed Kreider, so he's been a previous guest, and I saw Reed and Sandy at PRI. One of the things I asked him about was, when are we going to get a driver school at Nelson? Because it's something that they've been working on. So there's at least one weekend this year where folks that want to get into SCCA racing, get licensed, there's going to be some great opportunities for them. So it's a long time coming. Used to be here, and it's coming back. So that's good for folks that want to get involved. Let's go to your first race. And it could be that school weekend. It could be maybe your first race at Nelson. Any jitters? Any last minute ooh, we forgot to do this? What's going through your mind as you're getting ready, whether for qualifying or actually going out and taking that green flag for the first time?
Well, for us, our first year, we were fighting a lot of engine issues. So, there was a lot of jitters there, but then I can even remember to this day, and my dad would say the same thing. I remember being in the car and my legs were just shaking like crazy. I'm trying to relax and I can't keep still. But that first race was a pretty awesome one. If I remember correctly, we ended up having an issue in qualifying, so I started at the back of the field, which for your first race isn't always the worst thing, because you can kind of play it slow, see what's happening in front of you, and then just take your time. But that first race is something always special. But it's also very funny how you go from being crazy nervous to once you see the green flag, all of that disappears, and you're super focused on what you're doing then.
Is there one thing you wish you would have known for that first race that you figured out later?
Not really. It it's one of those where it was just a learning experience for me. It wasn't anything too, it's not like it was the runoffs where you're racing for a championship. It was a first regional race, and honestly, keeping the car in one piece was my goal for that weekend. So Dad could race the next weekend. So it was a different experience to what I had had up to that point, but I wouldn't have changed anything.
Oh, that's great. And how many seasons ago was that?
That was 2023, so 3 years ago.
Okay. So you raced in 3, 4, and we just finished up season 5. I asked you before the show, what was the best racing advice you have? And it's basically to go out with a plan. So how have you applied that to your racing?
Yeah, that's one of the most important things, in my opinion, when it comes to racing. A perfect example is we went to the June sprints this year. It's one of the last stops on the SCCA Hoosier Super Tour, or their national tour. And we had been fighting a lot of car issues that weekend, but we knew we weren't in a great place after qualifying, but we said, okay, we're pretty far down in the field. Let's try and make up some positions. We just got to be aggressive here. And I think before turn 3 at Road America, I think I was up 5 or 6 positions already.
Oh my gosh.
So we took 3 or 4 cars before turn 1, and then another 2 or 3 cars before turn 3. So going out with a plan is probably the most important thing. And it doesn't have to be aggressive. It doesn't have to be this race is going to come to me. It's even simple stuff like, okay, it's practice. I'm going to work on turn 5 braking, turn 3 turn in. It's all that kind of stuff, because just going out and driving doesn't do anything. You're not gaining anything from it. So always go out with a plan. Always try and learn something about the track. And I think that's the best piece of advice, whether you're a highly experienced driver or just brand new. Have a plan.
That is great advice. A lot of folks are just saying seat time, seat time, seat time. And if you're doing the same thing wrong over and over again, doesn't matter how much seat time you have, you're just creating bad habits. So I love that, to go out and have a plan, work on something, have a game plan for a race. That is super great advice. So you and Dad share a car every weekend?
Not every weekend.
Okay.
Unfortunately, these Hondas are like potato chips. You just can't have one. We're up to 3 of them now, plus a parts car. So it's a little challenging when you have 3 cars and only 2 drivers, and Dad travels for work. So, I'm prepping and maintaining 3 cars. So we have my orange car, which I'm campaigning at the runoffs and the national events. We have my dad's green car, which is now white car, which is getting finished up for this season. And then we have our black car, which we're doing some big changes to. So we're not doubling up every weekend, especially at some of these national events, because we put our cars pretty high strung to get the performance out of them. So we usually just do one driver, but at a lot of the Nelson events we'll double up because it's so close, and if something breaks, it's easy for us to go back to the house and grab parts.
Sure. Is that where you have all the cars?
Oh, yeah, we have them here at home. So
okay, that makes it easy.
It does, but also, on a school night where you get an idea of something you want to work on, do I go fix the race car, or do I go and study a little bit more calculus or something like that.
The race car sounds more fun, but calculus more important. There's plenty of time to race after school, right?
Yeah, it's it's hard for me when it comes to school sometimes because the early part of the race season is when we're still in school. So, and then getting a job over the summer makes it hard sometimes too to maintain three cars. But we're kind of taking a step back on each car every season, and we're doing a lot of development currently on our orange car. So it's really only maintaining two cars at a time for us.
Gotcha. So, we kind of skipped over the whole school thing. So we're recording this late December 2025. You are home from college break. Let's talk about college life and school and future career. So where are you going to school?
I'm currently going to the University of Akron. I'm studying polymer science and polymer engineering. It's a kind of a branch of, I'll say, chemical engineering. So it's a little different. It's challenging.
Well, folks, if you've listened to the podcast for any amount of time, you've heard me say this before. Why are all the good guys engineers? All the good drivers, all the smart drivers are engineers. Thomas, what do you think it is about engineering that makes it a good driver?
Well, I number one, and I think I can say this on behalf of a lot of engineers, we like data. Mm-hmm. So we collect data on everything, and it allows us to push our cars a little bit further than the next guy. But it's also kind of the engineering mindset. You really have to get focused on what you're doing, and being in a race car, being able to pick up little details and all that and stay really focused is critical.
No, that's great. Let's fast forward to when you're done with University of Akron. What's the goal? What kind of career you want to have?
Well, thankfully with polymers, I have a lot of options. I can go into plastics. I can go into rubber with like tires or molds. I can do oil. That's one of the major polymers we use. Paints, coatings. So I have a lot of options. I'm kind of keeping my door open for whatever opportunities come. So it's pretty open for me. I mean, I'm only a sophomore right now. I'm currently looking at some co-op opportunities and all that. So I'm just trying to find something that I enjoy.
Yeah, I know there's no doubt you're going to be successful with whatever you want to do as well. And you mentioned a lot of different industries, and I think we're lucky enough to have a lot of those in Akron and Cleveland. So you probably end up staying close to home.
Yeah, between places like Sherwin-Williams up in Cleveland or Goodyear in Akron. I mean, there's so many options, and even if you go right across the border to PA over to Pittsburgh, there's a lot of options there. So I'm staying pretty local.
Oh, that's great. So as I mentioned, recording this in December. Some people call that the off season. I've been calling it the growth season. So what does, from the checkered flag of that last race we did together in October to the green flag in 2026, what are you doing not only to the cars, but for yourself to make yourself a better driver?
Yeah, so I enjoy running. So I'm doing a lot of running over the off season, just trying to build up the endurance. Especially with a lot of the national events going to 40 minutes long. I mean, you have to have pretty good stamina for events like that. But also, I do a lot of sim racing. So, just trying to learn the track a little bit better, whether it's tracks that I know, like Mid-Ohio or Road America or Watkins, or new tracks like Barber or Gingerman. So it always trying to learn something new. But I'm also doing some other little projects, helping out another driver. I'm doing a transmission for him right now. So,
no kidding, rebuilding a manual trans?
Yeah, so I actually redo all the transmissions in our cars. That's kind of my niche. I enjoy it, but I'm currently doing a Miata transmission for an RX-7. So It's different.
Yeah. Wow. So I had to swap transmissions in the RX-7 coming into this season into 25, and I gave my other one transmission to someone else. He took it apart in front of me to find what was wrong with it. I am so glad I wasn't the one to take that apart, because I looked at it and said, yeah, I don't think so. So kudos to you. And again, the engineering background, the smart background, being able to take a look at that, be able to fix that, get it back in the car and have it perform. That's no small feat.
Yeah, and on top of the whole transmission thing, it's a lot of math in there when it comes to optimizing your gear ratios and all that. And I enjoy that. I'm currently trying to find something even a little better than we're running right now. So,
oh man, that's cool. So, for example, helping somebody like that, how does that help you develop as a driver, or just as a person?
I mean, it's a little bit of business side, understanding that realm of racing, but also understanding my competitors' cars. I race in the F production class, which is a pretty heavily Miata filled class. So understanding how their cars work can either give me advantages, disadvantages, or in the case that they break something, I can lend a helping hand at an event to help them get back out on track. And just because they're a competitor doesn't mean that, I'm not going to help them. I want everybody to get back out on track and we all have a fun time.
Yeah. And when I asked you what you liked about SCCA club racing, that's exactly what you talked about: camaraderie and community. And you are a living example of that, just based on what you said. Is there an example of something you witnessed early on at an SCCA event that said, all right, I love this community, I love these people?
I mean, it's never been like a first, it's kind of been an always. Every event we've gone to, I've met new people, and everybody is super open to talking with you and, lending a helping hand here or there. I mean, our cars, we've had our issues, but we've always had people come over, help us. So I want to be the same. And if someone else has an issue with their car, I can go help them.
That's beautiful. So I mentioned when we started earlier that we were Paddock next to each other this past October, and it was later at night. I pull the trailer in. I see your trailer. I'm like, man, that trailer looks familiar, because it's a gorgeous Intech trailer. You don't see too many of those. It's an awesome shape. And lo and behold, next morning you guys were there, and I'm so grateful you were, because that's the first weekend I had the RX-7 on slicks. Only my second time ever racing on slicks. It was a cold weekend, and you gave me some great advice about heat cycling the tires. Don't go out and just practice on them the first practice event. Get them warmed up, 5 laps kind of thing, come on in. That was super great advice. But then also, I kind of was checking in on you guys throughout the weekend, and I'm like, why every session the car's up in the air, wheels are off? I'm kind of like, what am I missing here? The tire's supposed to be stored somewhere else, and this, that, and the other. And your dad said, I'm going through the car. Everything felt fine. I'm just double checking everything. And I thought, okay. Now I'm a big proponent of nut and bolting everything every time, but I'm also a little lazy. And if the car felt great and my lap times were good and no new noises, you know what? I'm going to go back, and for some reason I love tinkering on the trailer. That's like my jam when I'm at the track. I want to clean the trailer a little bit. I want to work on it. I want to bring it up to speed. But your dad sharing that advice, the rest of the weekend, that's exactly what I did. I got the car up, I shook it down, made sure nothing else was loose, looking for fluids. So thank you for that, and the whole Gaydos family participating and making the Paddock a better community with lots of camaraderie and good Halloween snacks too. People are stopping by grabbing that from you.
Well, you can thank Mom for that one. She's our snack/food person every weekend. So
yeah, you guys had a nice spread. For the listeners, the sometimes it's called the Monster Mash. It's been the Halloween race for a long time, but every Paddock spotter is encouraged to put out some treats, and so people can go trick or treating. But you guys went beyond that. I saw your table set up with some snacks. I took some notes because I shared it with the radar team. So when we go to race weekends, this is what I'm talking about, guys. This is how we have to have things set up so people can grab things quickly. It was it was impressive. Truly a family affair. Because I think your grandparents came out too, didn't they?
Yeah, for us, it's a whole family ordeal. I mean, we all work on the cars, you know. Yeah, mom cooks, but she also wraps our cars and does body work and all that. So it's not just me and dad or me, dad, and grandpa. I mean, everybody has their job, and it's a whole family thing. And it helps having, you know, 5 people to maintain one car or 2 cars. So having people to go the track with is also really important, because sometimes you get out of the car and the last thing you want to do is touch the car.
Yeah. Yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, these weekends are long. They can be hot. They can be strenuous, demanding, and then frustrating if things aren't right. So the more help you have, the easier the weekend goes. So you're definitely blessed with great family and friends to help you along. So tell us about the 2025 season. How do you think things ended up for you? I do want to talk about runoffs in a minute, but also I'm going to guess you're competing in F production with Knee Ohio, right?
A little bit. You know, we've kind of gone to a lot of the national events now, the majors and the super tour events, and it involves a little bit more traveling, but we end up seeing, you know, the same guys who are going to the runoffs. Mm-hmm. So, you know, figuring out where you stack up earlier on in the season, and also maybe being able to learn a little bit from what someone else is doing to make your car a little bit faster. But our 2025 season, it was okay. We were fighting a lot of heat issues all season. We tried different radiators, different header setups, and it was also just a hot season. I mean, there was multiple weekends where it was over 90 degrees for us. So it was a hard season for us, but that's why we're doing some development on that car, hopefully cooling it off a little bit more for 26, possibly 27.
Gotcha. Let's talk about runoffs. So for those that don't know, runoffs, basically the SCCA championship, and you just don't show up. You got to participate in a couple of those majors, right? So walk us through. You can even use your 2025 season, but walk us through, you know, what you had to do to get there, and then let's talk about the whole experience of runoffs, because it's just not a couple of days; it's a whole week. So first off, how does someone get to runoffs?
So the runoffs, it's kind of a funky process, but basically you either have to do 3 major/super tour events, or you have to do 2 majors and 2 regional events. Last year, you had to be within a certain point standings to get to the runoffs. This year, it's been changed where the points don't matter. As long as you complete those events, you can go. For us, we did the Mid-Ohio Hoosier Super Tour. We didn't even start the race. Our car was having a lot of issues there. It was hot. It was not a good weekend. I think we qualified. I think I did a total of 6 laps that weekend, but you have some good ones, have some bad ones. But from there, we went up to the June sprints, had an okay finish. Dad ended up having to drive 12 hours to pick up a radiator and set of headers to make the car stay cool enough for a whole race.
Oh my goodness.
And then we went up to Watkins Glen, which we had a pretty good weekend. We had an axle failure there. We were struggling with that all season. But we had a much better. We were one place away from a podium. We almost were able to hold on to it, but some lap traffic just put us out of the running for it.
Oh man, it's always something with the Hondas, huh?
Yeah, the Hondas are pretty prone to the whole axle failure thing, being front-wheel drive, and you know, we're trying to push a lot more power and torque through these stock engines, so we're having to beefing up our axles and all that a lot.
Yeah. So then you made it to runoffs. Did you and your dad race, or just you?
I only did the runoffs.
Okay.
8 hours with 2 cars is a long tow.
Yes.
Up to Road America. So for Road America, we're only going to take 1 car. Yeah, we went. It was a shortened runoffs this year because they're doing a lot of changes to the national uh, events and classes and all that. So instead of being, I believe they were 6 or 7 days before, it's down to 4.
Okay.
So it kind of felt like a compressed event. You felt like you were constantly doing something. So it it was weird this year. I don't know how to describe it, but at the same time, we had our cylinder head off doing a head gasket the day of the race. So if that
Uh,
doesn't sum up our weekend, I don't
and,
know what does.
and do you think that was a result of some of the heat issues you've been dealing with?
Yeah, we're also thinking we might have a little bit of a warp in the head or something like that. Or, I mean, it's a 13-to-1 engine,
Hmm.
so it it's kind of prone to blown out head gaskets, but we're not getting as much life out of them as we feel like we should be. So we're kind of taking a step back and reevaluating what's causing that.
Gotcha. Yeah, a lot of moving parts, literally and figuratively, right? A lot of things to kind of sort out. Um, as you look towards 2026, what are you going to be focused in on?
It's a development year for us. So, like I said previously, we are currently finishing up a new F production car. Um, that's currently up in Wisconsin with our engine builder getting tuned. So we're going to be campaigning that car a lot this year. And then we also have our ITA car that we've been running F-Prod, and we're looking to move that car over to STL. Um, so it's kind of a development year for us this year, and just trying to learn a little bit more about these cars. We've already found some issues with our orange car that we're trying to learn more about so we don't make the same mistake on our other cars.
Gotcha. Yeah, you need those sort of seasons every now and again to do some data collection, figure some things out, and then maybe even have a stronger, in this case, 2027.
Correct. And we're also kind of hoping, they'll have the past 3 runoffs at Road America. So we're kind of hoping maybe they'll come a little bit more closer to home, with a Mid-Ohio or Indianapolis. So we're kind of taking this year a little bit slower until we know where the 27 runoffs are, and we'll figure out what we want to do from there.
Yeah, Indy would be epic again. I think they only ran there once, maybe twice.
I believe it was twice. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That would be really cool. If somebody were to approach you and say, Thomas, I heard you on the podcast. I really liked your story. I want to get into racing and motorsports. What advice would you offer them?
Don't build your first car. um, it seems tempting, finding the exact car you want and building that car. But honestly, if you're looking to go road racing, buy a car and understand that class. And you don't have to stay in that car crazy long. I recommend staying in the car for a year or two, but just, I know it sounds bad. We said, oh, go out with a plan, but seat time is equally as important. So, but using that seat time with a plan will get you much further ahead. So, find a car and understand that car and understand your capabilities. When we started, we didn't know how to build engines, transmissions. I mean, we kind of jumped in with both feet and tried to make it stick. I mean, we've blown our engines up multiple times, but it's a learning process. You're never going to get anything right the first time. So,
No, yeah.
Try different events. I'd highly recommend SCCA. They're super welcoming, like we've talked about. And you always have a good field of cars there. So, understand what you want to do. And unfortunately, not everybody can go run a big GT car their first season. You might have to start in a Mazda Miata. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. You will learn a lot more in that Miata, I'm sure, than you will in a big GT2 Mustang.
When you need to go and learn something, maybe it's rebuilding transmissions differently, maybe it's taking a different driver's line. What are your resources to go and learn things?
It sounds bad, but YouTube. Um, there's so much, especially with cars like our Hondas, there's a lot of videos out there on how to redo the stuff on them. Um, so you just have to go, you have to look and see what's out there. Um, and that's another thing before buying your first car. See if there's any um, videos on how to fix stuff on your car or that car, because you might be in a situation where you have to rebuild your own transmission because no one else knows how to. But also getting a shop manual. That's been one of the biggest things for us. We have a shop manual for our car, and it allows us to know a lot of those smaller things like some of the clearances or, oh, this is Honda's trick to remove a bearing or something like that. So I'd first say YouTube, but get the book. It will teach you a lot.
That is great advice. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to cover today?
Not that I can think of. Yeah.
All right, I got two more things to talk about. So you said the goal isn't F1 or even IMSA, but do you think that motorsports, regardless of where you go career-wise, will continue to be part of your life?
Absolutely. It'll be a huge part of my life. And I'm kind of in that position. I'm not a 16-year-old karting world champion or something like that. So I don't really have, I don't want to say what it takes to be a Formula One driver. I mean, hey, you never know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm going to take every opportunity I can. I mean, if there's a TCR team or an MX5 team that even I can just do a test day in their car, I'll definitely take it. But it'll definitely be a huge part of my life. I mean, I love the engineering of it, so I get to continue to work on cars and try and find new tricks and stuff to make my cars better. So
awesome. So it's time for the last question. Have you ever been late to grid?
Actually, late? No. Later than I want to be, yes. So I'm one of those drivers that likes to get there nice and early, get out of my car. I have a routine to getting in the car now. So have I ever been late where I missed grid? No. But I'm sure it will happen at some point.
It might. Do you have one tip that saves you from being late to grid?
Always listening to announcements and also just understanding the schedule. Understanding what cars are either out on track or going to be out on track. And truly that first season, getting to grid early is important. It might feel weird to sit in your car for 5-10 minutes, but it probably will calm you down a little bit before going out. So that's why I like it. But at the national events, I talk with other drivers,
Mm-hmm.
You meet new people on grid.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Thomas, it's been great having you on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking some time and sharing your motorsports journey.
Thank you for having me.